2016 had a lot of good movies this year. I was really impressed, and in fact, I had a hard time picking this top 10 list. It was not easy. I felt a lot of the good movies this year were in either historical dramas or thrillers. So let's check out our top 10 Korean films of 2016, and let's see which ones you want to watch. Now, before we get into our top 10 list, we have two honorable mentions. The first one being A Violent Prosecutor. It was one of the most popular movies in Korea. I believe it was the second highest grossing movie of 2016. It's basically about a prosecutor that gets framed for a murder, but he didn't do the crime. So with the help of a con artist, they try to find the real killers. And as you guys can imagine from a crime comedy movie, there'll be plenty of laughs to be had. Our second honorable mention is Lucky, and it's a remake of the 2012 Japanese movie, Key of Life. Now, this movie is actually a comedy movie where it has two people, one being an ultra-rich, successful man who's also a hitman, so he's doing illegal stuff, and the other being a bum. He's 32, he has no direction in life, he really doesn't have a job, and one day, because of a situation, these two people switch lives. So the bum suddenly becomes wealthy and lives an ultra-rich life, while the hitman lives a life of modesty and a dirty apartment left by the bum. So with those two honorable mentions out of the way, let's get on to our top 10 list. So our first one is Missing You. And this is a crime thriller movie, and it stars Shim Eun-kyung, who's one of the most popular 20-something-year-old actresses here in Korea today. So the story starts off like this. 7-year-old Hee-ju is waiting for her dad to come home. She loves her dad very much, and her dad is really busy as a detective with the police force. However, one night as Hee-ju's dad is waiting for a taxi, the passenger gets out of the car and stabs him in the neck. And suddenly you're like, whoa, why did this person kill Hee-ju's dad? But her father miraculously finds the willpower to actually limp back home with a bleeding neck wound to her daughter late at night. But her daughter is sleeping, so she doesn't know her dad's about to die in front of her. So as her father calls out Hee-ju's name, it's too late. Her father died from a loss of blood. So they eventually find a killer, Ki-bum, and he's only sentenced to 15 years in prison, which brings an uproar to the audience and the court. In fact, they feel that Ki-bum should have got 30, 40 years, or even life sentence, if not execution. Ki-bum smiles, knowing that he got a lenient sentence, and pretty much says, I'll see you in 15 years. Our number 9 movie is Time Renegades. And Time Renegades is directed by Park Chae-young, who's most known for My Sassy Girl and Windstruck. So this movie can be described as a time crime thriller. And if you guys watch director Park's other movies, you know he loves time travel. You know he loves his alternate universe themes. So this definitely has it in spades. But I felt this movie was also like a first for Park Chae-young, as it didn't rely on so many tropes that his previous romantic comedies or other movies did. So the story starts off like this. There's two main protagonists in the story, one in 2015 and one in 1983. Both of these people are celebrating the same event, New Year's Eve on December 31st. So in 2015, the detective's looking for a possible crime heist that's about to happen during New Year's Eve. While in 1983, the high school teacher is about to propose to his longtime girlfriend to become his fiancée. But as the days go on, the detective in 2015 starts to get these thoughts and messages from the high school teacher back in 1983. And he's wondering, who is this person? Why am I getting these thoughts? And where are you from? And through this connection, they find out that they're separated by 22 years. But why is that? Why are they able to read each other's minds? And not only that, send each other messages from 22 years back in time. Our number 8 movie is The World of Us. And this movie just came out of nowhere. It was pretty much a sleeper hit that blew us away. And the story is quite simple. It's about two 10-year-old girls facing the adversity of school life. And the cool thing I liked about this movie is how director Yoon Ga-eun just pretty much showed how Korean school is today. You got the peer pressure, you got the pressure to get high grades, you got the pressure to get into a good middle school and high school, and eventually university. You got the peer pressure of avoid being bullied and finding friends. And a lot of us can relate to this, whether you're looking back on your own school memories, whether you're still in school, whether you have kids going to school, or if you're a teacher teaching kids. I thought about all these themes while watching this movie. It was just a nice film that showed both reality, yet I can definitely feel and empathize with the two girls in the movie. Our number 7 movie is Dongju, A Portrait of a Poet. And this movie follows two people, Dongju and his friend Mongyu. While they're good friends, they're also rivals in some sense because they're competing in academics, they're competing for, prestige and whatnot. So Mongyu is this literary essay writer type, and Dongju is the poet type. And back in the 1920s and 30s of Korea, the literary writer type got a lot more prestige and recognition for their work, while poetry was considered uncool, like, oh, what can you do with poetry? And it got so bad that Dongju's father actually wanted his son to abandon poetry and wanted him to become more like Woo and pursue the essay literary writing style. But Dongju wisely stays the course and rejects his father's overtures. But the differences between the two friends comes to full fruition when the Japanese occupation of Korea is in full swing. The two took very different approaches to how to combat the Japanese occupation. It was really interesting to see how these two just pretty much got thrust into Korea's independent movement and see how their fate would turn out. Coming in at number 6 is The Last Princess. And if you guys want a sad story, oh, this movie is definitely sad. So if you're Korean or if you studied Korean history, you probably already know the story of Princess Dokhae, which the movie is based on. Princess Dokhae lived in the early 1900s under Japanese-occupied Korea. When her father was assassinated as a teenager, her life turns upside down. Princess Dokhae, up until now, only knew a life of luxury and glamour, is forced to move from Korea to Japan. So this movie highlights her struggles as she tries to move back from Japan to Korea. This movie also highlights her importance as the last princess of the Joseon dynasty, as well as teaching the new generation of Korea how she played a part in modern Korean history. So at number 5, we have The Truth Beneath. And this is by far one of the best thrillers I've seen this year. And it goes like this. You have this upscale rich politician that's running for office, and you have his wife. So this politician starts running for office, but on the first day of his campaign, his daughter is kidnapped. This is like the worst thing that can happen to any nominee. So while the father and mother are understandably shocked and scared and want to get their daughter back, they have differing ideas on how to do so. The father wants to keep the news of his daughter's kidnappings hush-hush as it would ruin his election campaign, while her mother, understandably, doesn't really care about her husband's campaign as much as she just wants to find her missing daughter. So I really love that this movie had these conflicting views between father and mother, as well as the backstory and suspense of the kidnapping. Our number 4 movie is Age of Shadows. And Age of Shadows was one of the big blockbusters in Korea this summer, and the movie actually started off with a bang. Quite literally. So this movie takes place in Japanese-occupied Korea, and in the beginning of the movie, you see a lot of Japanese foot soldiers chasing this one Korean independence fighter, and as they corner this Korean patriot inside a house, a Korean-Japanese officer goes inside the building alone to negotiate the surrender of this patriot. However, the patriot looks at him and says, "You really betray our country to work for the Japanese?" And the Korean-Japanese officer says, "Korea will never get independence in the near future." But the Korean patriot, seeing how his own countryman serves the enemy, commits suicide. And thus starts the movie Age of Shadows. And what I really liked about Age of Shadows is that it had a really good blend of action spy thriller in it. And without revealing too much about the movie, many people lauded this movie for its train scene. Enough said. If you guys like spy thriller movies, gotta see this movie. Director Park Chan-wook is at it again with our number 3 film, The Handmaiden. Now you guys might know Director Park from the Old Boy series or JSA, but his latest movie, The Handmaiden, definitely won't be forgotten. I'll tell you that. And the reason why? I'll just say this. It's one of the most erotic Korean films I've ever seen. It has, naughty scenes. It was known as a very erotic movie here in Korea. That was pretty much the selling point. But I'll say this, the movie definitely has an awesome story, and I expect nothing less from director Park. So the movie starts off like this. It does take place again in Japanese-occupied Korea, like many of the other movies on this list, and there's 3 main people in this movie. There's a con man, a female lowly servant, and a heiress that is very wealthy. So the basic plot is, without spoiling too much, is that the con man and the lowly female servant are working together. And they want to get close to the rich lady to steal her wealth. And the simple plot actually becomes more engrossing and it really engages the viewer as you watch it. A special mention has to go to the environment, the atmosphere, and the setting of the movie. The Handmaiden actually won awards just for its beautiful environment, and you'll see why after watching this movie. Our number 2 film is Train to Busan. And Train to Busan is just a great film if you love the zombie genre. So the basic premise of the movie is you have a divorced father and his daughter that's going to go travel from Seoul to Busan on a train to visit his ex-wife. So they take the KTX speed train to Busan. But as you can imagine from the movie's title, things will go a little bit crazy. There's a zombie outbreak, and yes, there are zombies on the train to Busan. Now, what I loved about this movie is that Korea did it right this time with the zombie genre. And if you're a fan of Korean cinema, they really don't do sci-fi, or especially zombie films, well at all. So to do really well in the zombie genre, which is dominated by European and US studios, is just a testament of how well this movie is. This movie will definitely get your heart pumping and have you on the edge of your seat. And our number 1 and favorite movie of 2016 is The Wailing. And the reason I first heard about The Wailing is that a lot of my friends were talking about it on opening day. They were like, oh man, have you seen The Wailing? I'm like, no, I haven't seen The Wailing. Is it that good? And people were like, yeah. So I saw it that night and I was blown away. So this movie is a crime mystery thriller and it does it so well. So it goes like this. The movie takes place in the countryside in a sleepy town called Busan, the name of the movie in Korean. So one day the local police officer gets a disturbing call saying that there's a lot of gruesome deaths in this village. So the local policeman comes to the scene late, but he sees how gruesome and weird and strange these murders are. So as he goes deeper and deeper to find the true culprit of the murders and why they did so, he learns a lot more than he expects. And what I really like about this movie, since it does have some horror elements into it, it doesn't try to scare you really using jump scares. The movie just has a creepy pace to it that makes you feel more engaged. And this movie is also quite long. I think it's a little bit over 2 hours, 30 minutes, and it's worth every minute. I was really engaged watching this film. I wanted to know who is the true culprit in this movie and why, and this movie just delivered for me in spades. So after watching this movie, because of my friends' recommendations, I can definitely say this movie is our #1 favorite Korean movie of 2016. It's that good. So I hope you guys like our top 10 favorite Korean films of 2016. But what did you guys think about these films? Have you seen them? If yes, I'd love to know your take on the movies. And if not, which movies do you want to see? Or which movies should have made our list? Please write them in the comments below. And if you guys like what you saw and want to learn more about Asian movies in depth, please hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. And lastly, if you guys want more Asian movie suggestions, please download our free ebook, The 108 Asian Movies to Watch. I think you'll like it. So with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy, guys.